Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
You'll notice I missed off our strap line, James.
The world where everything revolves around fantasy Premier League. Are we going to do a different show today? We're not doing Sky today, mate.
No, but on Tuesday, my world didn't revolve around Fantasy Premier League, and as a result, let's get it out in the open. For the first time since we've done this podcast, I missed an FPL deadline.
Dun, dun, dun. Who's going to tell the story of what happened, me or you?
Deadline. Well, I'm a bit more aware of the whole story, but to be honest with you, it's not that exciting or that interesting as a story, really. But obviously, this free hit situation had been brewing for a few days, and then the Spurs Fulham game getting changed on Monday really was the final decision in me deciding that I was going to free hit this week, and I didn't.
So I was doing my deadline stream.
Correct.
What was the deadline? 4:30.
4:30.
So 3:30 in the afternoon.
Deadline. Yeah.
And there was a few people in the chat were saying, "Oh, there's problems with the FPL website." So I did what I never do during a deadline stream: was I checked my team about 10 minutes before deadline. And for some reason, the captaincy was on Alexander Lacazette, and I genuinely cannot explain to you why. And we had a laugh about it at the time. I obviously changed that to Harry Kane, so it was nearly a bit of a fuck up for me as well, mate. So the stream finished about 4:45.
Yep.
And then it got to gone 5, and I messaged Suj. And the reason I messaged Suj at gone 5 is we obviously play Sky Fantasy as well. Now in Sky Fantasy, you have daily captains, and you have until kickoff of the first game on each day to make transfers and changes, select your captain, that kind of thing. And Suj had a very bad habit last year of missing Sky deadlines. So I said, look, do you know what I'm going to do this year, mate? In that hour, every day I'm going to message you and go, Sky reminder. And that's what I do. So I sent Suj about 5:10 on Tuesday, Sky reminder. And Suj messaged me back and said, I've missed the deadline. I said, no, you ain't, mate. You got till 6 o'clock. He's like, no, I've missed the fucking FPL deadline.
Yeah, I think the exact words were, so this is it. I'll read it out. Sky reminder. Fuck. Missed the FPL deadline. Legit. What? Exclamation mark, question mark. Mad afternoon. Didn't play free hit. Didn't even think about football. Oh my ... Don't even know who my captain is. Don't even know my team.
So
what a disaster.
The best bit about you not thinking about football or FPL all that day was that we'd already recorded 2 podcasts that day.
Correct.
Including one for our patrons at lunchtime on Tuesday, which was very heavily focused towards free hit teams.
Yep.
How did you not do it, mate?
Yeah, I mean, there is an explanation, but the explanation still doesn't do it justice, right? I could have still got it done. But what had happened that day, obviously work is being quite busy at the moment. There's a few things going on that I can't be bothered to get into the detail about, but it's busy enough. I've got a few fires to put out, a few problems to solve. And that was a particular day that I had a meeting at between 2 and 3 p.m. that day. And this meeting had been locked in from December. So it wasn't one of those that on the day I can get up in the morning and just move it. There was other people involved, external people involved. And 2 till 3 was a really, really important time in my head. So I'd blocked that time out. Do you remember originally I said I had to go into town for a meeting into central London? And then we're like, no, it's going to be Zoom now. So yeah, that was at 2 to 3. But I'd fixed in my mind prior to the day how my day was going to go. I was like, that 2 till 3 is fine. I'll get all my pods done with James in the morning, no problem. And then when that meeting finishes, a hard finish at 3, it gives me a perfect hour to just check any last bits of information and sort out my free hit. That meeting overran a little bit. Then I'm like, okay, fine. My head's on thinking about something completely different. I'm homeschooling as well at the moment, right? So then my son grabs me.
Oh, that's it. Blame the kids.
And he's like, oh, yeah, I have to hand this in by 4 o'clock on the online system or something. And I haven't done this, that, and the other. Can you help me, Dad? Of course. Yeah, sure. So I get sucked into that, finish that, fine. And then I got pulled into the main office on something. And those three things combined, and the satisfaction I got from finishing that meeting, getting his homework done, and the other thing, meant that when you messaged me, I felt like the king of the world. Honestly, I was like, I'm cooking on gas here. I've had a really productive afternoon. I've got everything I need to done. I'm on top of the world. And that was like a dagger to the heart. Not a lie. And then I was like, oh, the one thing I was supposed to do. And the problem is that it's irreversible now. Like there's no coming back from what had happened. So I'm like, okay, the worst thing is now I've only got 6 players, sorry, but 2 are Burnley, 1's Fulham. Exciting. So now I'm down to 3 players, Cancelo, Son and Bruno. Son and Bruno, the ownership is so high anyway that I'm not really going to make gains or differentials. I'm reliant on other people to blank. So I ended up in a situation where, I completely missed it. And that 6 o'clock kickoff with the 4:30 deadline came back to bite me ridiculously. I coulda, shoulda just pulled the trigger on the free hit when we recorded the podcast, but I wanted the time to just zone everything else out, sit in front of my computer, just be 100% confident in what I was going to do. And it didn't work out like that. And the next thing you know, I put a tweet out, gets nearly 450 likes because everybody's enjoying my pain. But you know what? It's happened now. I am probably more upset about it than I am willing to admit. Does that make sense? I'm putting on a brave face.
Now I feel bad.
I'm putting on a brave face in the sense that, look, I find it very easy to put it into context. Look, I got to hang out with my kids, have a couple of beers, chill with the missus, and it's fine. Life goes on, right? Work is work, and I haven't got COVID. None of my family have. Touch wood, God bless. Everything's cool. What's annoying is 2 things. One is that it was my own fault, which actually, in a strange way, because it's my own fault, I feel more in control of. And secondly, it's cocked up my season. It's cocked up my season a little bit. So, but it's also on the bright side, not as bad as it could have been. When I messaged you afterwards, I was like, the context that I put it in was, if I'm 30 points down on the free hit average, then I've got away with it. Somewhere between 30 and 50 points down is what I expected to be. And if I'm more than 50 points down, then I've had a bad week. And I ended up being 45 odds points behind you, and you had a particularly good free hit. So I think compared to the majority of people on free hit, I think 50 to 55 points would be okay to estimate as an average. I got 17, so I'm 30 points down. So the way I see it now, I need to find a way of getting at least 30 to 40 points off my free hit when I use it in a double game week further down the line.
What's your thinking with it now? 29 for the cup quarterfinals.
Yeah. So look. So I'm almost as missing out on playing the free hit was like being punched in the face, and then Aston Villa, Everton, and Leeds, Southampton getting postponed in a week where I'd planned to play the bench boost was like a kick in the balls after I'd been punched in the face, because then now I'm down to 4 single game week players all of a sudden, and now my bench boost is put into question, and I have to have a strategy around that. So I don't know if I have an answer on what my free hit strategy is, but it's got to be allied with what my bench boost and second wildcard strategy is now. But I'd like to think that I can use my free hit in a double game week. Now, Southampton, Aston Villa, Manchester City, Spurs, Fulham, all 5 of these clubs have at least 2 games to catch up now. It's not like you've got 1 game to catch up that's postponed. You've got 2. I think Villa now, because the Newcastle game's been scheduled, is actually now 1 technically to catch up. But they are still a couple of games behind. So I think the opportunity to leverage it for a double game week will arise. I think I'm confident enough being able to claw back 20 points from my free hit. Clawing back 40 will still be a bit of a challenge. That's where I see it right now.
Okay, positives and negatives. Positive is where a lot of us are already thinking about next and what's coming next and how we maneuver 26, be it a wild card in 25 for then a bench boost 26, or a little bit like what I'm hoping to do is actually get to 26 with 11 doublers is the dream scenario, and not have to use that second wild card, because ideally I'd like to use it in game week 30 for the run-in is what I'd ideally like to do. The fullback is obviously using it in 25. For yourself, because you have the free hit left, you do not have to think about long-term planning in the same way. So after the FA Cup 5th round, we'll know before game week 24 what the likely layout is for 26, and we will know what it looks like for game week 29. You can make a decision at that point which of those game weeks you're going to use the free hit in. Are you going to go aggressive for 26, or are you going to be in a position where you might already have, I don't know, it's not impossible to be sitting there with 11, 12 doublers, and you can then work towards that bench boost? Because obviously, I don't know, are you going to bench boost in 19 now?
Well, this is something that we'll probably make a decision on by the end of this pod, because we still then have to, we're going to give everybody a rundown of all the teams that are doubling. And at that point, I can kind of sort of make a call on whether or not I do bench boost in 19. I've got 4 single game week players at the moment: McCarthy, Heung-min Son, Stuart Dallas, and Bamford from Leeds. Bamford and Dallas, I've made $500,000 in value on both, almost individually. It's like 0.4 and 0.5 or something like that. Heung-min Son has a fantastic single game week fixture with Sheffield United. And McCarthy, I'm happy to move on to Areola. So if I made the McCarthy to Areola move, I'm going into this double game week with 3 single game week players. Should I bench boost?
It's okay. I mean, the priority there, which is mine as well, is get rid of McCarthy.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't. I want a single game week keeper when it's Leicester away as well. I can't be.
I want to own, but Bamford and Dallas against Brighton is fine. Son against Sheffield United is fine. I want to own these players the other side of game week 19. So I feel like I might roll with the bench boost anyway, even though it's going to be 3 single game week players.
I'm in a very similar situation to you. So the way it stands now, I'm likely to probably be Kane, Bamford, Rafinha, the single game week players. So similar to you, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm probably still going to do it. Now, for me, it will take a -4 to do that, because I need to remove Che Adams on top of Alex McCarthy. But I think for me, yeah, can I get a 20-pointer out of a bench boost? And that's what I'd want off a -4 from, let's say, Areola, Bamford, Rafinha, plus a double game week. It's probably likely to be Lookman. It's probably going to be my weakest one. Can I get 20 points out of that? Well, it's probably all completely dependent on what Leeds do, isn't it? If Leeds don't score tomorrow, it's going to be difficult for me to get 16 points from Lookman and Areola, and then it could be a complete waste. But there's a team you wanted to trust on a one-off game to attack and go for it. It's Leeds, right?
It's Leeds,
one Bamford goal would probably be enough to get me towards the 20-pointer. Now, if I could get 9 points from Bamford and Rafinha, I'll take that now, and hope that the other 2 could get me 11 between them. Areola will get save points, and I wouldn't be surprised if Fulham kept a clean sheet in the next week, by the way they're playing. We'll talk about it in a bit. Negatives, in fact, for yourself that the free hit has gone, is I know you were going to play 5-4-1 with Harry Kane up front.
Yes, and captain Harry Kane. So I'm 40 odd points now. I would have got a similar total to you, 61 odd. I think the difference was I was going to play Rashford ahead of Saka and probably have Eric Dyer in defence. So Dyer wouldn't have got me a clean sheet, but Rashford would have picked me up the assist.
My 62 points has taken me above you, mate. You know, you kept beating me by 1 point every week. That doesn't matter much now, does it?
It's 15 points. So it's taken me to forget to play my free hit for you to build up a 15-point lead. I think it's all in the balance. Even when I was 30 points ahead, I didn't feel like it's done and dusted by any stretch. So it's going to be interesting. Let's talk about your free hit and how it played out within the context of, I feel like I got away with it. Yeah.
I think generally speaking, yeah. I mean, if you take, I've got 62 pointer and that's a game week rank of 53,000.
That's incredible.
That tells you that it's a very low scoring week. I mean, that's double the average. I think top 10K average was 45-ish to 48-ish, I think. I can't remember. But I mean, that's not high, for example. So for myself, a little bit like what we discussed in previous pods, Suj, we kind of identified that we said we thought there'd be 10 goals across the 6 games is what we actually predicted. How many was there in the end? There was 1, 2, 5, 6, 8. Incredible. 8 goals.
If you'd have said to me before City and United will win 1-0, Arsenal will draw 0-0 and Spurs will draw 1-1, I would have bitten your hand off. I mean, before the games had started, but after I'd failed to play my free hit. If you'd have given me those results, I would have bitten your hand off because no one went big. Apart from defensively, this is where I got hurt defensively, but no one went big from an attacking point of view. So, yeah, everybody was one return, apart from, obviously, if you captain Kane, you did well. Everybody else was an assist or a goal, and that was it. There was no one going big at all.
I won out on the game week, essentially, because I captained the right player in Harry Kane. Although, it must be said, if you look at the statistics from the weekend, I mean, the game week, 4 big chances for Heung-min Son was actually probably the right player to go with in hindsight was Heung-min Son. Clean sheets from Diaz, Stones, Wan-Bissaka. The assist from De Bruyne. We'll get on to Raheem Sterling in a bit. And the one that made it from a good week to a very good week was I had the best first sub around to replace Kieran Tierney in Ethan Ampadu. And I saw a lot of teams in the build-up. I spoke about this earlier in the week. That didn't have benches at all. And I know there's quite a few people got Tyreek Mitchell last night as well. At least in Tyreek Mitchell's case, there was the case that he'll come on and play. But my thinking pre-game week was always, I could lose a whole game here. Never mind just losing a Kieran Tierney. I need a playing bench. Yep. And I went with a weak bench, right? Ampadu, Brewster, Dendonka. But I went with 3 players who I thought, well, in the game week, they could return for me. And to be honest, there was never a thought in my mind to play Ampadu from the start ahead of Smith Rowe. But that's exactly what it was for. Nailed on, first defender from Sheffield United, Newcastle, I think was either one, whatever your thoughts were pre-game, was generally the right play. So you get the saltiness from people. But then that's part of the strategy. You pick 15 players, not 11. This is FPL. And it worried me when I saw a lot of people with Douglases and stuff like that on the bench. I don't know how it's turned out for them. There was other people obviously missed the game week that we wouldn't have suddenly expected, like Adama Traore, for example. There might have been people come for Toby Alderweireld of Tottenham. So that, it's midweek fixtures as well. I really felt some sort of bench was important. What nobody ever wants to do on a free hit is have like 16, 18 points on their bench. Oh, because I've made wrong decisions. I left the players I should have picked on the bench. Yeah, but the reality is them points might come in very handy.
Yeah.
62 points up to 1.1 million touching now. Obviously, if I'm going to bench boost, I should be in the top mill after next game week. So it's kind of, if we go back to game week 4 and I said the mess I was in, I was like, yeah, this is roughly when I'll get inside the top million. So none of it's been too unexpected so far. I'm not going to win FPL, mate, but it's been a decent week.
Yeah, sure. I'm at 1.37 million from 900k. So 400k drop from a 17-point game week is safe. I'll take it. I'll take it and run. It's left me 50 to 60 points behind where I want to be in a couple of the mini leagues that I'm in, but those guys have no chips left whatsoever. So, it's recoverable, but it'll take some epic management now.
I think you'll end up using the free hit in 26 if you don't bench boost.
Yeah.
And if you don't bench boost this week, you'll end up free hitting in 29. I think that's where you're at. I think 29 will be a shit show depending on who's in it. Now that's obviously fairly obvious, but what I mean by that is, and in terms of people's planning, there are teams like Tottenham who could have a double in 26 and still play in 29. So should Southampton and Tottenham not make the FA Cup quarter-finals, Tottenham and Southampton's on in 29. Now, it's a tough fixture for both, but then they're the sort of players you don't mind having in your squad in the build-up to that. And Tottenham are definitely going to have a double in 26. So they're the sort of ones. I think Villa's possibly another, Man City's another, although it's highly likely that they won't play in 29. that there are a group of players that will double in 26 and play in 29. And once you know it, you can manoeuvre through to cover both. I don't think that 29 is going to be that awful in terms of getting players. I think it'll be awful because the fixtures are shit.
We shall see. One of the things I had to do this week, midweek, James, was I didn't watch any games. I couldn't do it to myself. It would have been just watching your own torturer talk to you. I listened to a few, and I did have the alerts on all of the apps. I listened to a few on the radio whilst doing other stuff, pretending to watch TV programs with the missus on Netflix while I've got the footballing in my ear. So I didn't really watch any of the games because I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't have watched Kane pop off with a hat-trick or De Bruyne tear me a new one. I just kind of caught up with everything. So let's run down the games. I mean, as exciting as it is with the 8 goals that you mentioned that we need to talk about.
The good news is you picked a good week to miss football.
Yeah, exactly.
The bad news is I watched all of it, so I'm now going to talk about quite a bit of it.
Let's do it. Sheffield United 1, Newcastle 0. Is this a recovery? Is this an opportunity where Sheffield United... No. Was it a lucky win? And Fraser...
Oh, no. They well deserved to win. They should have been in front by half-time when Newcastle had 11 on the pitch. It was the best I'd seen them play this season, Sheffield United. They played with a vibrancy and energy that we haven't seen. This felt a little bit more like what we saw of them when they were good last season. Couple of main reasons for that. John Dunstan's running from midfield was more like what made him a great FPL asset last season. He's not now because he's a midfielder, but actually running and getting into the box and going beyond people. The 2 wing-backs, Osborne and Jayden Bogle. I tell you what, anybody who went Jayden Bogle on their free hit, I know you've had a good return out of it, you've been bloody unlucky. He should have been looking at a double pointer here. He's 4.3 million. Obviously, no one's going to buy him this week. I get that. And they've got a tough run of fixtures. But he's one to monitor, honestly. Because if he can not lock down that place at right wing-back ahead of Baldock, he could be interesting. He's not going to get any interest in the next few weeks. So you've got time to assess it. And is it the worst thing in the world to have Sheffield United defender on the bench? They never get battered, do they? We talk about this all the time. So Bogle gave them some real energy in the team that they haven't had for a while. That said, I don't know if they looked very good because Newcastle was so bad. So there's been a lot made of Newcastle playing 5-4-1 away to what's been the worst team in the league so far this season. And a lot of criticism for Bruce and that. That's fine. But it's not just a case of necessarily always the system. It's the case of the personnel.
So players themselves didn't deliver?
Well, I mean, it's not the players didn't deliver, but I don't think the players could deliver in the system they were playing because of their characteristics. And people like Longstaff playing right in midfield in a 5-4-1. If you'd have played Murphy and Ritchie as defensive or attacking fullbacks in the 5-4-1, because of what they can do when they're then on the ball, it's a different proposition, right? If you played with wide players, like if Almiron had played on the other side to Fraser and they could get close to Wilson, the system's still fine. Suddenly then you can attack with 5 and the 2 central midfielders can still do the sitting job. Fucking Sheffield United away, lads. Come on. Although I'm well aware that my team will probably go there and be defensive at the weekend as well. Ryan Fraser, an idiot, but in an odd way, Sheffield United actually were probably better in the first half against 11 than they were against Newcastle's 10 in the second half.
It's funny how that quite often happens, isn't it? So
Newcastle, they are awful, but they are part awful in that because of the selection. That system works for them, the 5-4-1. It's not long ago they drew 0-0 with Liverpool, drew 0-0 at Arsenal in the FA Cup and took them to extra time, right? So we know that system can work for them. You've got to do something with the personnel against certain opposition. They picked a team that looked like 8-1-1 on paper. It looked so bad as soon as you saw it, you were like, whoa, that back 5, none of them are going forward. And you've got 3 midfielders there who don't get in the box either. So it's only Fraser's going to support Wilson. And then Fraser got sent off, so poor Callum Wilson was... They've obviously now got a double because they've got Villa away next Saturday on top of Arsenal away. I wouldn't go anywhere near them. If you've got Callum Wilson, you're staying. I get that completely and similar. But in terms of buying them, oh, yeah, Newcastle got a double. I got this player of a single. Forget that. I'm not even sure he'll play in goal at the moment, although there's no reason why Darlow would lose his place. So if you've ended up on them, fine. But I mean, for me, who needs a McCarthy replacement at the moment, I would not take that gamble on Darlow. I know that if he plays twice, and he probably will, he'll get decent returns because he has to make so many bloody saves in that team.
Exactly, but there's limited chance of clean sheets at the moment.
Well, there's two difficult fixtures as well, right? We've got to stop underestimating Villa and start considering them as a very serious top half team.
Yeah.
So no, Newcastle wouldn't be on the radar. Sheffield United, great win for them. Really pleased for them. Genuinely, I didn't want to be in a position here in 10 weeks we go, are they going to be the unwinnables? And that's what they'd have been called. So at least that monkey's off their back. We spoke weeks ago that Newcastle would probably be the team that gives them the leg up. The bad news is that Sheffield United don't play Newcastle again until game week 37, and they'll be down by then. And the reason they'll be down by then is because there are definitely 18 teams in this league right now who are considerably better than them. I mean, you look at someone like Fulham at the moment. Sheffield United ain't catching Fulham.
No chance.
Are you going to catch Brighton? Even let's say they caught Brighton, you're going to catch Burnley? No. And they're what, still 14 points behind Newcastle. More chance of finishing above Newcastle than some of them other teams, I think.
Yeah.
They won't stay up, unfortunately. And to be honest, Chris Wilder's interview afterwards, it was like a resignation of, yeah, I know, but you know what? We're going to swing now. And that's the best thing they can do. Swing. They've got Tottenham, Man United and Man City in their next 3. Chelsea's the 5th of their next 5. Swing.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Swing and go for it.
The 3 points of a win is worth so much more than just ticking along with 1 point draws. So if you end up 2 and winning 1, or winning 2 out of 4 or whatever, but losing the others, that's fine. But just picking up the wins is so much more important now with the 3 points.
The next 3 games, they could draw Tottenham, United, City. Let's just say they drew 2 of them, hypothetically. It's not impossible, right? That's not going to do them any good.
No, that's a challenge, isn't it, for them now? Their good run is done.
Win or get beat. There's no point in having any draws. They're too far off, unfortunately. They won 5 points. 4 of their points this year have been won by Billy Sharp penalties.
Wow.
I heard you were going to put Billy Sharp in your free hit. Is that true?
No, it is not. But I did see your tweet suggesting that I might. What about Burnley 0, Manchester United 1? Another away win for Manchester United. 3 points clear at the top. Yeah.
First and really important point to make is don't captain Bruno Fernandes this game week. He's on 4 yellow cards. He's got Liverpool away first. It's likely to be aggro. If he gets booked, he misses the Fulham game. If someone actually wanted to go Bruno Fernandes to KDB this week, I wouldn't hate that, for example, if it's affordable for you. But it's worth saying Bruno has Sheffield United at home in game week 20, and him and De Bruyne will be the 2 standout captaincies that game week. Fernandes cannot be suspended for the game week 20 game against Sheffield United. This is the last opportunity where he could get suspended. And it's just an important reminder for everybody. It's not game week 19 where it ends for the 5 yellow cards amnesty. It is 19th game. So in the case of Aston Villa, for example, Jack Grealish is on 4 yellow cards. He could get booked against West Ham in game week 22 and miss Arsenal in game week 23. I think, although that might be a week earlier now, the Newcastle game's been added in, but it's 19th game. If you've received 5 yellow cards before your 19th game rather than 19th game week. So yes, a yellow card for Bruno Fernandes would mean he missed the Fulham game. Same also applies to Harry Maguire and I think maybe Luke Shaw as well. It just means it's not worth sticking the armband on Bruno this week. Could be a really smart play to go away from him, but you'll want him instantly back. If they had a tough game week 20, I'd have considered selling him, I think.
Okay.
For De Bruyne. Because of that in mind, I think, wow, how good could that be? The fact they've got Sheffield United in 20 as well, I think it means I would bet now that Bruno Fernandes, if he gets put to the weekend, it's a 1-pointer for him this game week. That's the point. that genuinely, that's the point. A 1-pointer for Bruno in the double. And you don't want that, do you?
No.
But if he gets booked at the weekend, there's every chance that's what it's going to be, isn't it? So I don't think it's worth taking the risk, sticking the armband on him when you've got the likes of Salah, KDB with 2 home games in a double. I wouldn't take that risk. Lots made of Paul Pogba's performance, which was excellent, really good. There are certain games that are suitable for him at the moment. Matic is the best partner for him when he plays central midfield because Matic plays with the handbrake on all the time, whereas McTominay's real energy, Fred likes to go and press the ball and stuff. Pogba knows that Matic will stay there for him, and that's why he's the best partner. Plus, I've spoken good things about, say, Brownhill and Westwood lately, and I thought they played all right again for Burnley, but they don't threaten you with running behind you. They're the sort of team who like to see the opposition in front of them. Therefore, Pogba doesn't have to worry about the defensive side of it so much against a side like Burnley. And also, obviously, in a game like this, the fact that he's an aerial power as well would have helped his selection. I think Martial came off very late in the game with a hamstring injury.
But it was just masked, or no one saw it?
No. He limped. He looked like he pulled his hamstring and limped off. Now, we don't know the extent of that till Solskjaer tells us something, and it's worth timestamping. We're recording at 11 a.m. in the morning, so it might be by the time you hear this, we might have some concrete news. But I would suggest Anthony Martial was extremely unlikely to play in this double. I think that there's a chance he might not have played anyway.
Yeah.
I think United will play Pogba wide on the left.
Interesting.
And
Rashford through the middle.
If you are on a free hit for game week 19, and only if you're on a free hit, I think Paul Pogba's a consideration at 7.7 just for this game week. I genuinely think he might play wide on the left, Rashford right, and Cavani through the middle. And you wouldn't expect anything particularly away to Liverpool. But I think at Fulham, if he picks up that sort of position, you'd be quite hopeful he might get you side. There'll be worse punts on a free hit, but literally only that. And that's the first time we might recommend Paul Pogba this season, and probably the last.
Yeah.
So I think his selection in the team and where he plays quite often is very dependent on the opposition and obviously the fitness of others. Take the Sheffield United game in game week 20, he'll probably feel he can play Pogba again with Matic in a deeper position and think it's quite safe. And if Martial's fit, he plays, or bring Greenwood into the team instead, something like that. Defensively good at the moment. They've got a major opportunity at the weekend to put themselves really clear at the top, right? It's unbelievable to think that if they win at Anfield, they go 6 points clear of Liverpool. Yeah. Amazing. In terms of investing in them for the double, I don't think there's anything you'd want to go and get new. I mean, from my perspective, probably look at the bench boost. I've got Fernandes. I'm not particularly happy with that. Would I consider someone like Eric Bailly now, who looks like he might be the better partner of Harry Maguire? Doesn't particularly appeal. I think the fact they've got Liverpool away, what's your expectations really for the double? You're relying on that performance at Fulham more than the Liverpool game. So I won't be investing in any other Manchester United. And I don't think many others will be either, actually, this particular game week.
I've got enough money to turn Son into Rashford, and I've been looking at that for a little while. It's going to cost me 0.2, albeit if I want to get Son back later, it's going to cost me a hell of a lot more because bought at 9.1, he's at 9.8 right now. So I'll need to find an extra 0.2 if I want Sonny back. Although you never know, he might see a small price drop if a lot of people are getting rid of him for doubles. But then Rashford has 3 fixtures to Son's 2. Son's 2 at Sheffield United and then game week 20, Liverpool. Whereas Rashford starts with Liverpool, but then has Fulham and then Sheffield United. Fulham and then Sheffield United. So I almost feel like for the 3 games versus the 2, or the 2 versus 1, if you take Fulham and Sheffield United versus Sheffield United just for Son, Rashford might be worth the punt. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's okay. But I think you're relying on the second fixture. I really think that's the sort of one where, you're judging it beyond. But then if you go further on, then Rashford's got Arsenal and Son's got Brighton. Then Rashford's got Southampton, Tottenham's got Chelsea. Then Rashford's got Everton, Son's got West Brom. So what are you judging it on? You know, if you go to game week 23 with Rashford and no Son, I'm not sure that's better. If you're judging it just till game week 20,
I can always move back.
So I think it depends what you're judging it on. But yeah, of course, you can invest in United knowing that you're Sheffield United afterwards and you'll land very well for 20. I think if I was buying one defensively at the moment, I'd go Wan-Bissaka. If I had to buy one now, I'd go Wan-Bissaka. Maguire, obviously, 1 yellow from a ban. I just don't need that headache if he gets booked at Anfield at the weekend. Luke Shaw is obviously in competition with Alex Telles. That feels like that could change in any game. And Bailly, I think by the time we get to the Sheffield United fixture, we'll have clarity on where we stand with him. I know there's a thought process at the moment that because he's quicker than Lindelof, he's a better partner for Maguire specifically. But I also think that everybody's forgot that that's the partnership that got absolutely ripped by Tottenham in game week 4. So I'm not quite convinced on that yet. I wouldn't be taking an Eric Bailly gamble, for example. Wan-Bissaka's the one I think, yeah, if I had to go one defensively, that's where I'd go.
Should we talk about Wolves versus Everton? Another win for Everton.
Great
They're fourth in the table now, aren't they?
A great win for Everton. This was a strange game because, I mean, I watched Burnley Man United. I actually only watched this game last night. But I thought I have to get hold of that once I've seen the teams because I don't know how either team's going to set up. So I wanted to go back and watch it properly. For Wolves, it was, I mean, Morgan Gibbs-White as a false 9, shit. I mean, it's not particularly on him, but Gibbs-White, false 9, Fabio Silva, wide left. It's just not right. I feel like where they're at, Wolves, to summarise, they're almost writing their season off. And they're part writing their season off because Nuno really believes in this back four at the moment. I genuinely think if they went to a back 5, even with their goal scoring problems, they'd get themselves into competition for maybe Europa League place. At the moment, with the 4 at the back, they've got that awful combination where they ain't getting clean sheets. I think it's 9 games or so they haven't kept a clean sheet and they ain't scoring goals. Now, listen, they've missed Jimenez, obviously, for a while, and they're missing Podence and Adama Traore this week. By the way, Nuno, thanks for your clarity on Adama Traore, as per usual. I wouldn't pay any attention to his press conferences or anything he says. Honestly, every week, we've got some issues. He's going to say that. He's going to say that about Neto today, I'm telling you. Oh, he got a knock in the week. He's got some issues. Don't be surprised if Neto doesn't play this weekend. So I feel like they're bumbling along, but I feel like it's part of the strategy that once Jimenez is back, that's how he wants to play. And if they play the system now, once they've got that real focal point, they will then benefit from it. So I think for Wolves, they're probably suffering a bit of pain, maybe for a greater good in the future. It's just a shame for them that I don't see them finishing top half at the moment, and yet we talk about Everton winning again, and as soon as anybody wins at Molineux, I think great result. Always, I think, great result. And for Everton, it's worth saying, no Calvert-Lewin. Richarlison was only fit enough to be a sub. Obviously, no Still Allen. They've got issues themselves. So they basically played 4-4-2 with Holgate at right back, Godfrey at left back. We've seen a little bit of this. Luka Dean played left midfield, and Sigurdsson and James Rodriguez played up front. Obviously, not out and out up front, kind of false 9s.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting to note on this is, and I think they've obviously blanked this weekend, so you've got time to learn some information. But they've got some decent fixtures coming up, like, for example, Newcastle in 21 and Leeds in 22, where those 2 fixtures say that there could be attacking returns in them. What's interesting to follow is Calvert-Lewin's hamstring issue. Because I think if Calvert-Lewin's going to be out for, say, a month or so, I think we get Richarlison up front, which is obviously, he is graded now as an FPL forward. And I think we might still get Luka Dean left midfield. So I don't think, as I said, they blank this week and then they play Leicester in game week 20. There might be enough information before they play Newcastle and Leeds to make a decision on that. I genuinely think there's a possibility that if Calvert-Lewin's out for a while, Luka Dean might stay left midfield. And I think the knock-on of that is because Ben Godfrey's playing really well at left back, that Ancelotti doesn't want to take him out of the team. I think it's a principle for Ancelotti. This kid is playing well for me. I don't want to take him out of the team. And if Luka Dean can play left midfield and it helps build his fitness as well, then it's winner all round to solve a problem why Calvert-Lewin might be injured. Now, Ancelotti suggested it wasn't serious, but hamstring injuries can very quickly become serious. Yeah. So it's worth following. The flip, of course, is who heads home most of Luka Dean's crosses? Calvert-Lewin, right? But Richarlison's obviously very good in the air. So I think in 10 days or so, we'll probably know where we're at. I think Dean and Richarlison are really interesting to try and follow in the short term. Good win for Everton. They are where they are because they've got an outstanding manager.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Luca Dean is definitely on my radar at the moment. Obviously, they've got a blank now, so not at the moment, but at some point he could potentially really come in into the mix. Let's talk about the Wednesday games. Man City 1, Brighton 0. What would need to happen for you to buy Phil Foden again?
Bernardo to be out for 3 months, Riyad Mahrez to be out for 3 months.
Yeah.
Something like that, mate.
You just wouldn't take that risk again.
I mean, to be honest, the fixtures look amazing on paper, and that puts me off even more. My opinion has been since before this season even started, from the restart period, that Phil Foden is now part of Manchester City's best 11 players and he should play. The fact that they've got routine fixtures makes this almost even worse. Is he going to play against West Brom? Is he going to play against Sheffield United? Is he going to play Palace and Villa? I don't know. So I could go, in theory, I think I might be just short Rafinha to Foden. But even if I wasn't, I wouldn't be making that move.
Doesn't appeal.
What's the point? I might be swapping one player with one game for another player with one game. And Leeds have got a good fixture as well. So I wouldn't see the point. Phil Foden, the reason I held him so long was because of this, knowing that he could be a very good FPL asset. And he will be. And the one thing I would say about him is that it's definitely easier to suffer the pain with him at his value than it has been with, say, Mahrez at 2.5 million more, for example. You think, I can't have this guy at nearly 9 million getting left out every other week. At least in Foden's case, my principle on it always was he can score off the bench, as he did at, say, against West Ham. And at his value, it doesn't matter so much. But then it obviously became an issue where he was out every week, right? But
yeah, of course.
Guardiola spoke after the game about getting him in the right frame of mind, I think, mentally and stuff, which is a fair point in hindsight, because obviously he had the stuff with Greenwood in Iceland with England, didn't he? And I think there might have been a bit of taking him out of the limelight for a little bit to protect him. He definitely should be playing for City every week. He is such a good footballer. You know me, I'd want to get him in the England team as quick as possible. I'm not saying I wouldn't go back, but it's not on my radar for this week. I need more information to know more. And I think it's more, when have I got that luxury this week? This week is not it for me.
No, for sure. But he's one on the radar that if I see him getting minutes consistently, which he can, I mean, he's their top goal scorer across all competitions so far this season now.
Bloody hell. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he's their top. He's got 8 goals now this season across all competitions. He's their top goal scorer in all competitions.
Well, that tells you a lot about City, doesn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, Foden for me is like when he's playing himself into an undroppable position because he is so good when he plays.
No one's undroppable with Pep, mate.
No, I understand that, but it's like you question it. You're like, hang on a second. When you play Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden, you obviously are a better football team. You move the ball quicker and you're creating chances and you're winning games. Why change it? But yeah, Pep is Pep. We know that. So yeah.
Ederson, Diaz, Stones, Rodri, De Bruyne. I would be very surprised if those 5 players didn't start both games in this double. Beyond that, everything else is a guess. That would be my take at the moment. It could be Walker at right back, Zinchenko at left back, plays Fernandinho for one game. I could see that against Villa. I could see Rodri, Fernandinho and Gundogan, as you like to call him, all playing against Villa. And De Bruyne playing that false 9 role again. I could see that against Villa. And then out wide, it's 2 from Foden, Sterling, Bernardo and Mahrez. You're right. It's a pain. It's a pain. I'd be buying City defensively. I've got 5 available doublers at the moment who have got 10 home fixtures between them. I can't justify moving any of them.
No,
if I had no problems though this week, genuinely I would drop down from Robertson down to Diaz or something like that. I would consider that if you've landed brilliantly.
Thoughts on Brighton? They had a spell, from what I could understand. I was listening to the game.
They played all right.
So they had a spell where they were on top and were causing City difficulty and getting in and around and creating chances. But again, still they're sitting pretty 1 spot above the relegation zone, 2 points above the relegation zone with 2 games in hand for Fulham below them. So
The system confused City for quite a while, and I think that's why the game started really slow. And City do have a habit of starting games slowly, and it's been going on for probably about a year, actually. Even think of the Chelsea game. First 15 minutes was shit, wasn't it? Mm. They've got a bad habit of starting games slowly, and I think a lot of this was part because of Brighton. The system was really odd, unsurprisingly for a Brighton team. It was basically a 4-3-1-2 with Bernardo and Proper playing almost as wide defensive midfielders, kind of leaving Ben White on his own, then Alexis McAllister in front, and then the front two to spin off in front, who in Trossard and the new fella, Tau, who looks a lively prospect actually at 5.5 million. Don't go and buy him. It was a really interesting formation. I think it took Manchester City a while to work it out, and I didn't mind it from Brighton. I don't mind Brighton coming up with something unusual to try and stop the opposition, or as I always think with Potter, try and beat the opposition in a game like this. I don't want him to try this shit when he's got like Fulham in game week 20. When he play Fulham in game week 20, he should pick his best team and try and beat them. Yeah, and that's the alarming thing for Brighton fans. I think they need to now get into a system where they're better with March at wing back and Lamptey at wing back. And obviously they're missing Lamptey at the moment. But we spoke about this last week. That's where they'll need to get back to. But this was fine for them. We don't need to talk about them much because no one's buying them this week. And they're the most unappealing side from an FPL perspective anyway, because of the rotation. You don't know what system they're going to play. That next to a Leeds single and Fulham single, but then it's Tottenham and Liverpool afterwards. So let's judge after that. I mean, I don't want to buy a Brighton player till Lamptey's back fit to even consider it, I don't think. Cool. But this was okay from them.
Before we move on to the next game, do you mind just giving me 2 seconds to go and grab some freshly popped popcorn, James? Because I'm going to sit back, pop a couple of kernels of popcorn in my mouth and watch you go. Spurs 1, Fulham 1. Mourinho out? Not really. But again, I mean, we talk about
again. That's the key word.
Holding on to a 1-0 lead, sitting on a 1-0 lead, and then getting pipped at the end again.
How many seconds?
You watched it. You watched it. I didn't watch it.
I watched it.
It could be that after the first goal, you went for it and you tried to score and didn't.
While you're thinking, God, James is ranting, please give Fulham some credit. The first thing I like to do is give Fulham some credit.
They've been good for a little while now.
Yeah. No, seriously, and we'll come on to Fulham in a sec. How many goals have Tottenham scored in second half since they beat Manchester United 6-1? Do you know the answer?
In second halves?
Yeah. It's just, 14 game weeks or something?
5.
Yeah, it is 5.
Wow. It's not a lot.
5 goals in 14 second halves. Are you taking
the reverse Wolves all of a sudden?
Do you know which team scored the most first half goals this season?
Spurs.
Right. So, you know why I get angry with this shit, right? And you said it straight away again. Yeah. It's like I'm watching a rerun of games over and over. The only thing that was a little bit different about this one was I thought Fulham were great. Wolves had complete dominance against us, but I didn't think they were going to score. And I think against them, it was actually probably the right way to play. I could live with that. Palace, we let in the game. Newcastle, I mean, how we didn't win that. West Ham, even at 3-0, was shitting myself in that game every time you come forward. So it didn't become, obviously what happened in the end was a surprise, but I would never felt comfortable in that game at all. Put them 10 points on the board and tell me where Tottenham are in the league.
Yeah. You don't need me to. You'll be about 6, 7, 8 points clear.
Right. The Tottenham have had lucky results as well. Burnley away, Brighton at home, West Brom away. I know that. So there's some evening out. I get that completely. To flip it on its head, this is part why, and to not blame Mourinho here, I keep saying and was telling people all the time, the players in the team are not good enough. We have no control in midfield. As soon as Ndombele tires, the game goes. So there might be a correlation between the first half scores that Tottenham have in first halves and second halves because Ndombele normally goes off after 60 minutes. Now, admittedly, he lasted longer in this game. But his influence, for me, he was the best player on the pitch in the first half. And then in second half, he was non-existent for when he was on. So there could be that. But then Mourinho's seen this so many times. You need to assess this and do this better. So Harry Winks, what's Harry Winks good at?
Tackling and moving the ball on, just sideways.
Moving the ball. Ball retention, I'd say. He doesn't give it away much, does he?
You watch him more than me, so if you say he doesn't, I'm going to take your word for it.
So he plays Winks with Højbjerg, but it's never Winks that goes to get the ball. It's always Højbjerg. And I'm not necessarily saying that Højbjerg isn't a better passer than Winks, but that's one thing that Harry Winks is good at. Control of the ball, control of the game for Tottenham. Otherwise, what's the point in being on a pitch? Might as well not play him at all. Sissoko, right wing. Explain to me this, Suj.
Yeah, that was a bit bizarre.
Sissoko right wing, which we've seen in games before, and I think it's a time like he tried it at Liverpool, and it didn't work then either, by the way, and it was better when Sissoko went back in midfield. You got Bergwijn obviously wasn't available, it's fine, I get that. Bale, not been fit, fine. Lamela, not been fit, fine. Lucas Moura. Right, there's no reason why Lucas Moura couldn't have played that game. None at all. But then inexplicably, we used 2 substitutions in the second half, and we're throwing the kitchen sink at them at the end of the game to try and win the game. There's a much chance of us losing it, by the way. And Bale and Lucas stay on the bench. We've used 2 subs.
Yeah.
Explain that.
I can't. I don't understand why it's such a defensive mindset so often.
Carlos Vinicius isn't the answer to anybody's question. He scored a hat-trick at Marine. Great. Brilliant. He's another one like Jedson. I'm beginning to look at it and I'm thinking, I'll tell you what, I'm glad this is a loan rather than a permanent signing. I've seen loads of tweets after his hat-trick at Marine. Oh, maybe Tottenham got a good backup now for Kane. Stop it. Honestly, what would I have rathered in the last 15 minutes, that he put Vinicius up front or Bale? I know which one's more likely to get me a goal. So Mourinho needs to find a way to utilise Gareth Bale. Now, I think the way to do that at the moment is probably to play Højbjerg, Winks and Sissoko. Play him as a free and then get Bale in the team. That means losing Ndombele. So it's about time now start trusting Ndombele to play a deeper position. Ndombele playing a deeper position in a flatter free. You can have like Højbjerg sitting off deeper as a real anchor man. Let the other 2 go and play football, which means probably Winks over Sissoko. Will get us better control of the game, and it gives us better attacking threat as well. I'm not the one on £15 million a year. He's got to find a solution for Bale. Otherwise, you might as well call Real Madrid up and say, take him back.
Take him back, because that £20 million in wages for the season seems like a big waste.
I cannot fathom that you need a goal against Fulham, and you've got one of the best goal scorers on the planet over the last 10 years in terms of his capability from long range, etc. And you don't use him for that. You don't feel you can even trust him for that. Don't even put him on the bench then. Do what you did with Dele Alli. Tell him to go home.
Yeah.
Tell him to go home. Needs to find a solution. If you've got Kane or Son for the weekend, it's fine. It's a single fixture. They will not go off. Listen, at the moment, I'd obviously fancy us to win the game. But if you ask for score prediction 1-0,
that's tight.
Yeah, and rinse and repeat. The one good thing about the second half on Sunday, if we're holding on to that 1-0 lead, is the opposition probably won't score.
Arsenal 0, Crystal Palace 0 yesterday.
No. Fuck Arsenal and Palace. We can skip that. We need to talk about Fulham.
Yeah, because I'm about to buy Areola, and it would leave me with Areola and Johnston as my 2 goalkeepers. I don't particularly like it.
And I'm probably going to do the same thing.
Having said that, they have been better the last few weeks. They played well against us much earlier in the season, but you keep seeing from Fulham now, they're not getting smashed about. They're finding a way of scoring goals moving forward. So if you ask me right now, I think Fulham might stay up,
So do I. So do I. I think the teams that are above them at the moment should be worried.
Yeah.
They're beginning to look a good team, and there's a number of reasons why. The changing system in terms of removing Mitrovic out of the team a couple of months ago has done them the wonders, because they've now gone from aimless crosses into the box to now trying to play football. And even in the first half, when Tottenham played quite well, Fulham were also very good on the ball, but didn't look like they were going to create. In the second half, they become a different animal, particularly obviously once Lookman came on. And I think that was always the intention with Lookman, was to say, well, we know if the game's close, we know what Tottenham will do. They'll drop off. you're going to be able to get more shots away in the second half. You'll be more used to us then. So as a Lookman owner, I'm quite hopeful that he'll come back into the team, actually. I really like Areola in goal. It just looks a good goalkeeper, mate. Yeah. It just looks a good goalkeeper. The two centre-halves are great. You know what they do? What's really good about them, Anderson and Adarabioyo, considering they play for a team that is expected to get beat most weeks. You go through games and you could watch a game, and if you didn't know, I didn't know who that was. They're just non-fussy, get on with it, and do their thing. They're building a very good partnership. It's critical that partnership stays together for them. Really like Robinson, whether he's playing left back, left wing back, bombs on. Like him. Good player. Midfield, Anguissa, beast. Good player. Yep. Loftus-Cheek looked fit in the week. Good. If you can get Lamina into that as well, that then becomes a very powerful midfield three. Although Harrison Reed does some dirty stuff very well in terms of covering. And then Cavallero's playing all right up front.
Yeah.
Like if you said to me right now, you have to get a double game week player in instead of Rafinha, generally right now I'd go Cavallero over Foden if Foden was affordable for me. I honestly would.
Yeah, he's a funny price, 5.3.
It is a shit price.
It is. And I mean, he's a forward out of position as a midfielder in FPL. 5.3 though. I just don't know if I would rather have Caballero than Souček, for example. Souček's gone as high as 5.1 now.
Souček's 5.3 now, isn't he? He's 5.1 for you to sell.
Yeah, is he as high as 5.3?
We knew this was going to happen. I think everyone's been steaming into him. Double check that because I might be
50,
wrong.
Yeah, you're right. If 5.1 is my selling price, you're right.
I know what you're looking at.
5.3 with 15% ownership. So he's gone up 0.3 with just 15% ownership. That's a hell of a swing.
Oh, well, he's going to be extremely popular for this double as well, Thomas Souček. We'll talk about in a sec. But I think, Cavallero, if you want to buy an attacking one now, you go Cavallero. You wouldn't. I've got Lookman. I think it's okay, but that's not the one you'd buy now. You would buy Cavallero. He's playing OOP up front. And in an odd way, the stronger the opponent, the more chance he might have in terms of the way they're breaking on teams. They like to isolate situations where they can get 3 against 4s and trust their ability and stuff like that. So I think Cavallero is really interesting, mate, actually. Someone said to me, I want to buy Cavallero this week. I don't hate that. Even though it's Chelsea Man United, you've got a 5.3 midfielder who's probably going to play OOP for 2 games, and he's on pens. He's not the worst, honestly. So I think Cavallero's okay. And as I said, those above should be worried. After the double, Fulham played Brighton and West Brom. Both away, but both in a row. Imagine they win them 2. If they win them 2 before we get to game week 22, we'll all be thinking they'll stay up, honestly.
Yeah. Let's have a quick summary of the Arsenal game because we have been chatting for nearly an hour already, James, and we want to give people a rundown of the double game week that's about to happen as well. I did think this was going to be a low scoring, if nothing, a draw. Crystal Palace are good defensively. They can nullify teams like Arsenal. What happened?
If Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang was 5.3 million, would you buy him this week?
No.
Just to compare to Cavallero.
No. I'm not going near him.
I think, personal opinion on Arsenal, and I know they've got a strategy and identity they want to kind of follow under Arteta and that, and I understand that, the idea of having a philosophy and stuff. If Arsenal play 4-4-2 against Newcastle on Monday, with Aubameyang and Lacazette through the middle, Saka on one side, another winger on the other side, be it Pepe, Willian, whomever, they'll batter Newcastle. As it stands, they'll find the game difficult. Everything's too slow in build-up. Thomas Partey being back available is really good for them because he's a good player. But it's probably going to mean he comes in for Ceballos to take another creative player out of the team, although he's been fairly anonymous for most of this season, if I'm honest, Danny Ceballos. So I think they should consider what they're doing. And that partnership of Partey and Xhaka, I think, would allow them to actually play 4-4-2 for a small period in some of these games. Quite simply, Kieran Tierney was a massive miss.
Yeah.
And he's the left back. And that speaks volumes about Arsenal at the moment. There isn't a lot more to add on to them other than that. Gabriel was obviously back on the bench. So I don't think that partnership of Holding and David Luiz is necessarily locked.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Pablo Mari missed out as well. As I said previously, I think it's probably Lewis versus Holding in competition and Gabriel versus Mari and Louise for left-sided centre-back. I think if Gabriel's going to come back in, which is a possibility, at the moment, it would be harsh on Rob Holding if he lost his place. But it wouldn't surprise me. And one of the reasons it wouldn't surprise me is David Luiz can be very creative from deep. And that's why
he's got a very good passing array as David Luiz, setting people off, and he can hit a good long pass. So, yeah, I can understand that. From a Palace point of view, the one that's got people's juices flowing is Tyrick Mitchell, potentially. I mean, he's played 3 games in a row now. You talked about potentially him having the chance to lock in that left-back spot now, potentially. Do you think that's likely to happen?
I think he probably has. Yeah, we've spoken about this before. Obviously, PVA's out of contract in the summer. If Palace think they're getting into a position where they're going to be safe from the drop, they should start playing this guy all the time. And what are they on, Palace? 22 points or something? Like, they should be fine, really. They'll keep ticking over because in games like this, if you don't score early against them, and this even applies to Man City at the weekend who played them, then the game becomes a suffer. You suffer playing Palace if you don't score early in these games. Good. I mean, to be honest, Palace fans have a right to claim that they could have won this with some of the chances they had, particularly late in the first half. I think Mitchell at 3.9, he's not going to be 3.9 for long. If for some reason you've got 11 double game week players that you're really happy with, but you hate what you've got with your bench now and have decided not to bench boost, I don't mind if you buy Tyrick Mitchell now to get ready, get him in at that 3.9. If you want a little bit more security, I thought Joe Ward at right back was brilliant, really good. Honestly, defended that touchline so well last night. He's 4.3, so he's not expensive either. And I think I'd probably want that little bit more security going forward. Where they're awkward, Palace, is they could have a decent double in 26. And I think when people are making transfers going forward now, depending on if you're trying to plan to 26, which is what I'm kind of doing, I want to know what's happening with them. So,
of course,
for Palace have got Fulham in 26. They could have a double against United. Now, I don't mind that as a double, even for the defensive options, actually. But for them to have that double, you're relying on United to beat Liverpool and West Ham in the cup, basically. So there's no clarity or certainty. And if it ends up just being the single game in game week 29, I'm not sure I want that player so much anymore because it's just playing Manchester United. Would I have hopes of the clean sheet, for example? So they're quite an awkward one to judge in terms of the potential possibilities for them. But Mitchell 3.9, it looks like he's in now. He's going to be really popular in the next few weeks. But Joe Ward at 4.3 offers a really nice alternative.
Okay. And that's a rundown of the 6 midweek fixtures that we had. Take a cathartic deep breath and out. It's done now. It's behind me. This week that was a disaster. The games are all done and dealt with. I'm drawing a line under it and saying that I now have however many game weeks it is. It's exactly half, isn't it? 19 game weeks. We're halfway through now. No, after this 19. Week we'll be halfway through.
We're not really, because we've got games to catch up on as well. Yeah, but technically after 19, yes, halfway. Yeah.
So all I'm doing is trying to fight my way back up from 1.37 million as opposed to maybe 600k, which is what could have would have been. But anyway, it's done. We need to move on to double game week 19, James.
Should we have a quick rundown of the teams with doubles that we've not spoken about?
Yes, I think we should.
So Villa, obviously now Everton is off on Sunday. They now play Newcastle next Saturday instead after Manchester City. My original thought when Leeds Southampton was postponed was my replacements for McCarthy and Adams, quite straightforward, Martinez and Watkins. I'd have the exact money to do that. I don't want to buy Villa. And the reason I don't want to buy Villa is because I haven't got the information. And because they're now not playing Everton this weekend, we're unlikely to get any information either. So for me, I don't want to buy their assets. Do you know what? I remember that one of the games in the double is Manchester City, and I'll judge it afterwards. If you've got, like, you're still on Grealish or something, great. Yeah. Grealish is a definite no-buy. He's another one on 4 yellow cards. I would be so sick if I bought Martinez as part of the -4 and he's one of the guys with COVID. I don't think I can take that risk until I see him post on Instagram or something later of a picture of him,
Okay.
like with his gloves on or something. And I'm not going to get that before deadline. So I'm probably going to miss Villa. The chances are, if you go for them, in 90% of the cases, you're going to be all right. But I think if you're doing it for as part of a bench boost, I'll just have a second thought. Because
worth it.
If you take hits for them as part of a bench boost and they're not available, that is sickening. That really is. I expect that most of them will be okay. Like by the time Fulham come round to playing on Wednesday, most of them had recovered from their issues a couple of weeks ago. But Villa was bad, like Newcastle was bad, in terms of how bad it was at the training ground. And we know Newcastle, Jamal Lascelles hasn't played in the league since, which was game week 11, and neither's Alan St. Maximin. And we've got no information if anyone's got it bad or not. So for me, I wouldn't be going there.
Villa is an avoid. Burnley, we spoke about briefly with, obviously after with the Manchester United game. I'm on Chris Wood and Matt Lowton. I think it's fine to stick on those guys.
Just a note on Burnley, we should have said, because Jack, did you listen to COTC yet, Suj?
I haven't yet, no.
You should. Jack cleared things up absolutely brilliantly at Turfy Topper
about...
No, I forgot to ask him about that. We'll do that some other time.
Okay.
Yeah, I know what I practiced. As soon as we finished, Jack went, I thought we were going to talk about the takeover. I went, oh yeah, forgot about that.
Only because we'd preempted it earlier in the week.
I know. He cleared it up brilliantly on Charlie Taylor, for those who own, by not clearing it up at all. I think if he's fit, Charlie Taylor probably comes in, and that's because the opponents that they'll face directly is probably Jared Bowen and Mohamed Salah, and I don't think Salah versus Peters is a battle that Sean Rush particularly wants. So I think if Taylor's fit, he'll probably come back in. If you've got, honestly, he's probably one of the most awkward ones at the moment if you own Charlie Taylor. There's every chance he plays at West Ham and they're capable of getting a clean sheet in a game like that. If you haven't got fires, I'd probably sell. But really, really awkward one. The attacking guys, I wouldn't buy. Like Chris Wood and that, no interest.
Chelsea, a team that have got so little attention, but a fixture against Fulham away and then away at Leicester as well, which is probably going to be a much more tricky game for them. I mean, I'm not looking at Chelsea any which way at all.
No, I've seen a few mentions for Timo Werner.
Sure. I don't have a problem with anyone that wants any of their assets.
No, never do I particularly.
They're decent. I mean, Reece James is decent. Chilwell's been chipping away all season consistently. Werner, even if you own Abraham or fancy Pulisic or what have you, I wouldn't attack any of those attacking midfielders. Havertz, Pulisic, Ziyech doesn't really do it for me. But Werner, I don't mind. Chilwell, I don't mind. Reece James, I don't mind.
One thing that really supports the idea of buying Chelsea, and I think particularly defensively, is the double is okay. Fulham away, Leicester away. Listen, they could get nothing out of that defensively. They could get 2 clean sheets. Wolves, Burnley, Tottenham, Sheffield United, the 4 afterwards is quite appealing in terms of clean sheet prospects, I think. So there's a lot of people going to be in the Reece James quandary. If you own him, I think a little bit like Charlie Taylor. I think if I own Reece James, I'd definitely keep. More so than Charlie Taylor, I'd say, do you know what, sod it, because I'd like what I've got on the other side, definitely. So I think I'd keep. I don't think he's the one I'd be buying, though. I think Mendy might turn out to be quite an option for a few people looking to move, perhaps a goalkeeper who now hasn't got a double, for example. I can't get there if I go with Mendy and Antonio. I can if I go Mendy and Watkins. I don't want to go Villa. So I think there's a few options. Chelsea, Werner is a big differential. He can go off. We know he can. Pulisic, another one, could suddenly click into form with a little break they've had. It's not for me. I need to see more. To be honest, I feel with Chelsea a little bit like I did pre-game week 1. I need to see what happens next. Like pre-game week 1, I need to see what it was going to be. And I'm not convinced. I think Reece James, over the next 6 game weeks, will prove to be probably a pretty good asset. I'm not sure if he will do for the double specifically.
Fulham we've spoken about a little bit here.
Skip.
Obviously, not too much to go through with them. Leicester City.
Pereira is available, which could be a concern for Justin owners, but I don't think it is. I don't see Pereira coming straight back in to play against Southampton's high energy, or perhaps against a Pulisic against Chelsea, for example. So I think Justin owners could be okay. I wouldn't even be surprised if Pereira did come in that Justin went to left back anyway. Although there's some talk amongst Leicester fans, the idea of Pereira playing ahead of Justin or Castagne and playing right midfield. So this one to be very cautious of in the short term, but I think Justin owners should be okay for this game week. Kasper Schmeichel is a reasonable shout for people who've got goalkeeper issues. Defensively, the one that's probably the guarantee during the double is, to be honest, there's no reason to think it won't still be Justin. Fofana might be an option for you, but he's more expensive than Justin, so that doesn't seem to play out. Maddison and Barnes are interesting, possibly. If you're sitting there with the likes of Rafinha and Harrison, and you're going to drop down to Kane to Vardy, for example, it might give you the money to be able to do that sort of move. I don't hate it. Leicester have an indifferent run of fixtures over sort of the next 5 or 6. Kane to Vardy is a very reasonable move this week for many people. He's probably not going to work for me because of the lead. That was always the plan for me, was Kane to Vardy this game week, but I've now got the issues of the Southampton players particularly. And then I start thinking, is it worth part of a -8 to go Kane to Vardy, and I'm not sticking the armband on him? And I start thinking, no, probably not. So it's probably not going to be for me. It'd just be Justin for me. It'd be what I have. But you can attack them.
Vardy's sitting in my squad as one of my wildcard picks that I'd set up for this week. So hopefully Jamie will serve me well. Liverpool. Obviously, we haven't had a game for a while. Their assets that we all own are pretty self-explanatory. You've got the defensive guys and Robertson and Trent, and then Salah and Mane are always the highly owned ones. So that's what most people will stick with. Any thoughts? I've only got 2 for this double game week.
As I said genuinely earlier, I think the idea of a move, if it opens you up something better of Robertson or Trent down to Stones, Cancelo, that kind of thing, it's reasonable. Unbelievably.
Even with the double game week as it's lined up.
If you haven't got the issues somewhere else, and Robertson to Cancelo allows you Son to De Bruyne, I can't argue that, can I? Am I saying that if you're saying now Robertson, Cancelo, what do they score in the double? Generally, I'd say probably quite similar. But De Bruyne has got every chance of smashing Son to bits. So you have to equate that into the thinking of making that transfer, right? I've got Robertson Trent. I won't be making that sort of move, again, because of other fires. But beyond the double game week, I'm looking to probably move away from the Liverpool guys, actually. I cannot believe, as I spoke with Dan on COTC, I cannot believe that they haven't and seem to have no intention to buy a centre-back. Shocked.
Yeah, I mean, I heard Ramos as a rumour a little while ago, but I think it's gone cold as the talk on Ramos.
I'm just imagining Sergio Ramos, who's possibly one of the most hated people in Liverpool.
Yeah. One of the groups that I'm in, football chat, WhatsApp groups, is literally, how would the Liverpool fans feel about him? I think he is Marmite, though. When he's on your team,
you'd love him. Yeah.
You can't help but love him. When he's on the opposition, everybody hates him. City and United, we have talked about. Do you have anything to add about the Manchester clubs? We talked about Wan-Bissaka.
No, the only thing I'd add on Liverpool, I don't think there's anything else to say on City United, just on Liverpool is, and I guess versus City, I think De Bruyne is the best captaincy shout. But I also think Mohamed Salah is okay. The interesting thing about De Bruyne, for those who are not bench boosting, and this might apply to Salah as well, is from a triple captaincy perspective, this might be best. Unbelievably, in spite of the fact City could have doubles in theory in 24, 26 and 27, we looked at it yesterday with the patrons. This one's probably the best one from a double perspective. So for those not bench boosting, it might well be a consideration to pull the triple captaincy. And I don't mind it. That's what you want to do. Can we predict the future? Could Kane potentially down the line have a double game week against Burnley and Fulham? Yes, potentially he could. Could City have better double than what they've got now? Yes, potentially they could.
You're only going to you'll only draw those 2 games 1-1 anyway. So
you'll probably draw 1-1-1 and lose the other 1-0. I should imagine. I don't mind it if someone wants to pull the trigger. I don't mind it.
And no triple captain armband on Raheem Sterling as a consideration. No, we didn't talk about this penalty situation.
This is ridiculous. At 2-0, I understand it. At 1-0, they were under pressure. City.
I get.
Shouldn't
I
have been
listened
happening.
to it when the commentator said Raheem Sterling has the ball in my hands. I just laughed. I was like, why? When you've got Kevin De Bruyne on the pitch, perhaps they have a thing where if you win the penalty, you don't take the penalty. Quite a few players are like that.
No, apparently De Bruyne said he was a bit fatigued in that, and Sterling wanted it. So he said, "Go on, have it." That's what I heard.
Poor Kevin is a little bit tired.
What have we got left to do? So it's just West Brom and West Ham, isn't it? Forget Newcastle done that. West Brom and West Ham.
Who West Brom?
West Brom, Robert Snodgrass is bound to be interesting this week. He'll probably go straight in the West Brom team, I imagine. But 5.7, you do not want to be carrying that, I don't think, on the other side. Although after City, they have Fulham and Sheffield United in 21-22. Johnston's fine in goal. I think they fall into category, West Brom, even though it's Wolves and West Ham away, which isn't bad. I don't think there's anything on the radar from a double perspective. That's not where you're going to go and target, is it? Johnston might fix a goalkeeper problem for you, but I don't think. I would add that I would not be surprised if they get something at Wolves, particularly at the weekend. I can see that game getting really frustrating for Wolves. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised that the Wolves boys listening are going to hate this. I wouldn't be surprised if West Brom nick a 1-0 there. I can see that. One set piece or something at the moment.
I can't go to West until and when I feel confident that West Brom are playing in the Big Sam way and that he's been able to sort them out defensively. I can't go near West Brom yet. I need to see it. I don't see the evidence. So. And last but not least, the mighty West Ham.
Should we let you summarise and then I'll correct you?
I don't know if I have any additional thoughts. I mean, Antonio, look, he played the entire game on Monday, so he's going to be on a lot of people.
Let me ask you the really important question.
Is he tired?
Is he tired? Yeah.
He always looks tired. I mean, if
I'm buying him. I'm buying him.
Get him in. Who do you sell it for? We had questions around like the likes of Bamford, Wood, who have double game weeks. Is it worth the Chris Wood to Antonio move? For me, it's not.
What about Che Adams to Antonio then, for example?
That's definitely fine. You've got a single game week player or someone that you're really unhappy with, if you own Mopay or some nonsense like that, then fine, going to Antonio is okay. Midfield, I mean, Souček's still the standout, but I would still think defensively, Soufal, Creswell, if you can afford it. Dawson, I think, is a very good differential shout.
Balbuena's isolating. She's out by the looks of it.
Dawson's definitely a good shout at 4.4.
He's up to a massive 0.1% own now, I think.
4.5 now. 4.5. Wow. He's gone up in price as well.
He's a great punt for this week if you've got defensive. That's where I'd go. I'd go Dawson.
Yep. Dawson, Creswell, Souček, Soufal, and then Antonio are the ones that I would look at. And maybe if you really have a goalkeeping problem, Randolph's not a bad shout either at 4.
I think Flappy's all right, isn't he?
He's yellow flagged at the moment. He should be all right.
I don't know if David Moyes has had his press conference yet or not, but I think I'd heard that he was probably going to be okay, Flappy. I feel like I want to double check that now because it's probably going to be quite important for some people.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy Antonio. I think this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy Antonio for Adams.
Che Adams makes sense.
Areola for McCarthy. And -4, and I'm going to activate the bench boost with Rafinha and Bamford. What I would want from that bench boost, David Moyes' press conference is 1:30 p.m, so nothing concrete as yet. But I think I've heard that Flappy might be all right. From that bench boost, which then for me would be Areola. I think I'd go Johnston in goal over Areola, actually, considering what I've said. But I think they could both do, and genuinely, I think they could both do right in this double game week. The thing with someone like Areola is if they get a clean sheet against Chelsea or United, he is highly likely getting you 10-point success this week. Yeah. So I think it's almost worth the gamble.
Yeah.
I think my weakest team then would be Areola, Bamford, Rafinha, and Lookman would be my bench. And I'd want 20 points out of those 4. Because I'm taking a -4. I always say about if you've got 8 doublers, if they do shit and they've got 2 points each on your bench, for the 2 games is 16 points. That's always my target of it. So if I'm -4 and I want 20, and whether I hit it or not, I think it's probably very dependent on what Patrick Bamford does tomorrow. But I think unless there's injury news that changes my mind during the press conferences this afternoon, which obviously could happen, then yeah, I'm going to go Antonio, I'm going to go Areola, and I'm going to bench boost.
Yeah. There we go. That's all of the teams that have doubles, James. Do we want to answer any Twitter questions?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, good. In the meantime, while I pull up, I'm gonna handpick 2 or 3 really good questions here, James. Give everybody a rundown of what they've got to look forward to for the last couple of days.
You mean the last day? It's Friday, mate.
Yeah, it's true. All right, early next week as well, if you know.
Early next week, I don't know yet specifically, but we'll have another main podcast Monday and probably Thursday next week. So I think Tottenham and Liverpool is the only game on the Thursday. So what we might do is if we do... Hang on, what am I talking about? Tottenham Liverpool's on the Thursday. Oh, no, it's FA Cup next weekend, isn't it? I'm jumping a week.
That's why we've got the Villa game.
Yeah. We'll have main podcast Monday and Friday again next week. Tuesday will probably be People's Poll. Wednesday will be Sky. Thursday will probably be me streaming. No Clash of the Correspondents next week. So all them midweek fixtures we got. Mig and Chris previewing Crystal Palace and West Ham on the Monday before game week 20 instead.
Okay. Are you ready for these questions, James, then?
Go.
We'll start with Amber. Amber Redmond. Is Suj's free hit escapade a publicity stunt? Fake news. My prediction is he uses it brilliantly later in the season, gets a triple figure haul from it. What a rascal. Absolutely not a publicity stunt. Absolutely.
No, because if it was a publicity stunt, you'd have at least made -80 transfers worth, wouldn't you? Good afternoon to the boys at FPL Dive.
Yeah. So, can you hear that in the background, James?
Yes, I can. I'm thinking, don't mute. It's better if you don't mute.
My son, who's in online learning, he's got his headphones on and he's just started singing "Happy Birthday" out of nowhere. So one of the other kids in the class, it must be his birthday, and they just straight up broke into "Happy Birthday."
It's so good. You shouldn't have muted. You should just let it go, mate. It's brilliant.
Oh dear. Well done, little Reese. Tim Salter, this is a very good question, James. If you and I husband swap for 1 week, what would the wives hate about their new husband, and what would the men struggle with, and what aspects would be a breeze? My wife would struggle with your football. Like when there's 2 games in one day,
yeah.
She can't get her head around 2 games in one day. If I watch a game of football and then there's another one later, and I'm like, I'm just going to watch the other game. She's like, how are there 2 games of football?
Mine gave me proper grief because Wolves and Everton was on the planner. So I watched Burnley Man United and I recorded Wolves and Everton. And it was on at like 3 o'clock in the morning. She was like, I'd given up by that point. Even for me, it's like, bedtime. So yesterday, she's like, well, why are you taking that game for at 3 o'clock in the morning? Didn't you watch it? I'm like, no. Do I have to explain to you? And then last night, why haven't you watched it yet? Well, because I've been working. If you fuck off to bed tonight, I might watch it.
Oh, man. Does your missus like to talk?
You struggle with the squeaky voice. Serge, you doing that?
I don't know about the voice. It's just that it's not even the voice. It's just talking in general. Like, I need silence. If I'm in and around my house, I'm not one of those people that needs to be talked to all the time. Just because someone else is in the same room as you, doesn't mean you have to talk to them.
No, yeah, mate. What you have to do is you just learn to zone out.
Yeah.
So what I do is, because my missus is a little bit like me, she likes to speak quite fast. So when she breathes, I just go, yep. And I chance my arm that I'm right. And if she says something like, well, what do you think then? Then I'm in trouble, aren't I? It doesn't happen often.
What would be a breeze? I reckon that both kids swap would actually be a breeze. I reckon Harry would be a piece of piss to deal with.
Oh, I'd have your kids. They're lovely, mate.
Mine are too easy as well. I mean, look, randomly breaking out into "Happy Birthday" in the middle of class is it. So yeah, I think the kids would be the easy part. I think my missus would struggle with James's amount of volume of football, and I just need silence. I reckon James's missus would probably talk too much for me.
Oh, she does.
We've got a ton of questions around bench boost, is -4s, etc. worth it? We've covered all of this. triple captain has come up as quite a few questions. Tom at Tommy Gonzo asked, when will be the optimum time to play the triple captainship now?
There isn't an answer for that. No, there isn't an answer for that. I genuinely, if I would consider using it on De Bruyne or Salah this week. If anybody wants to do that, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Genuinely. Because the other thing you've got with this game week as a benefit is they really should play twice, both of them. They shouldn't. You could have a better fixture run in the future and no knowledge if someone's going to play twice. That's why Kane always appeals for the chip. Because he's going to play, right? Didn't matter if it's Pochettino or Mourinho, he's going to play. So Kane could land up with a good one in the future. It's probably a little bit dependent on what you're doing bench boost. I think Kane's double in 26 will probably be Burnley and Aston Villa. Is the most likely. I think the priority would probably be to arrange Tottenham to play Villa before they play Fulham. There is obviously the possibility, as Ben Crellin's highlighted, that if they're clever with the fixtures, which they never are, then Tottenham could have a double in 27 as well, which also wouldn't look too bad as possibly Palace and Southampton, for example. I don't think City's doubles, what they could have going forward, are going to be fairly similar to what it is this week. And I think this one might be slightly the best. Liverpool, if they have a double in 26, is likely to be Sheffield United away and Chelsea at home. It's not too dissimilar to what it is now, right? It's Man United at home and Burnley at home. It's not too dissimilar. So if you want to go for either of those two this week, I think it's okay. Definitely don't triple captain Bruno Fernandes this week. He says Bruno will end this game week as the highest scoring player. Probably.
And let's end the pod with one final thought, James, that a lot of people, I've noticed on Twitter, I have to admit, I was trying to stay away just so that I didn't get myself down anymore. But a lot of people feel like the free hit was a waste or didn't go particularly well. And there are questions around it as well. Has the free hit been worth it for the majority of people that played it, in your opinion? I mean, if people have come out of this game week with, let's say 50 points is the free hit average, 50 to 52, 53 points.
Well,
was it worth it?
It depends. It's down to what the circumstances are. So I'll give you an example, and I hope he doesn't mind me using an example, but Johnny Pringle, our Man City correspondent, FPL Pringle, the gain that he got from the free hit compared to the team that he had was not what he hoped for. It was, I think he got about 14 additional points from his free hit. Now, he was going in with like 7 or so players anyway, so he was at that awkward borderline, is it worth it or not, right? He was hoping for near a sort of a gain of sort of 20 to 25 points. He wasn't hoping for much more because it was borderline for him anyway, and that's where he was debating, is it worth it? Now, Johnny's comfortably inside the top 100k in FPL at the moment, right? So
it's even harder to make the games.
That's why I use him as an example. Whereas for someone like me, who obviously went into the game week with only 3 players, and those 3 players, admittedly, those 3 players actually would have got me 24 points, believe it or not. That's fucking more than your 17, by the way.
Yeah. Mad. Kane beat me almost by a point.
Yeah. The gain for me was 38 points. Now, that's worth it. None of them other free chips, bench boost or triple captain, wildcard is over a longer period, but bench boost, triple captain, I ain't getting 38 extra points out of either of them chips. So the free hit's been a massive success for me. For Johnny, probably feels like it wasn't.
I think that 25 point kind of benchmark is anything less than that, you're probably a little anything less than 15. Yeah, I can understand you're very disappointed. Anything 15 to 25 to 30, you've done okay. And anything 30 plus additional points, you've got to take that and run.
I think the reason it's disappointment, if the fixture's not been so good and the average people have been getting the extra 20 points or so, people would go, oh, okay, that's fine. But I think because the fixtures looked so great, there was a lot of expectation in the week that could people be looking at scores of 80s and stuff like that. And I'm sure there are some out there, but generally speaking, that's not happened. You only have to look at through Twitter and averages and scores and what ranks have changed, etc. So, but there's if you've got 20 plus profit out the free hit, it's all right.
Take it. There we go. Thank you for tuning in to this episode, and I hope you enjoy the quick rundown on the games as well as a brief preview before the double game week of the other teams that are lined up. a very, very big game week ahead of us in game week 19 now. There's going to be a lot of movement with so many people having up to 30 fixtures when they've got a full set of 15 double game week players. So good luck for that. I do hope that you get as many fixtures out of your players and don't fall victim to rotation and injuries and COVID and anything else that could happen. And of course, don't forget, deadline is tomorrow. I don't actually know when it is, but I know it's tomorrow.
Deadline tomorrow is 11 a.m. I'll be streaming on YouTube at 10 o'clock. Remember, guys, it's double game week. This should be the most enjoyable part of the season. Enjoy the week. It's a long period. It's 8 days, right? Now that Villa Newcastle game has been rescheduled to the Saturday. So if it starts badly, there's a long way to go. And if you start amazing, don't fucking peak too soon either.
Exactly. There we go. And of course, with everything that's going on right now, it is tricky time. So stay safe wherever you may be. Keep washing your hands. Ciao for now.
Be nice to each other, everyone. Good luck. Cue music, please, man child.